Existe um navio só de banda grande de metal? Eu entrevistei o criador do cruzeiro do metal que se chama 70 Tons of Metal, no qual tocam mais de 60 bandas grandes diferentes de metal, e ele explicou exatamente como funciona. Nice to meet you.
Same here. It's my real pleasure that you have me on O Cara do Metal. Thank you for having me.
Nice, thank you for saying the name.
It's also always a real pleasure actually to be in this beautiful country of Brazil. You know, people are so welcoming, are so heartwarming, are so enthusiastic, especially about metal. It always makes me feel like home here.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. That's better.
You know, just like Racer X used to say, technical difficulties.
Tell me about technical difficulties. Can you imagine how challenging it is, not only to bring 60 heavy metal bands on a luxury cruise ship, but to build the biggest open air stage structure that ever sailed the open seas on a ship? Tell me about technical difficulties, you know. So
Well, I think we can start with that. It was not one of the questions, but I'm curious about this. Now that you brought to the table, I want to know how difficult is it?
um, maybe everything that you have learned, if you work as a crew, like as a rigger, building stages on land, goes right out of the window when you do this on a cruise ship. First of all, I mean, you can't anchor a stage to the ship, you know, like you can do this on the ground. Um, Wind loads are totally different. A ship moves, a ship can move against the wind. So let's say you sail with 20 knots and you have 30 knots of headwind, the relative wind is 50 knots. But the biggest challenge, like especially compared to doing something like this on land, is not only do you have space, but you have time. You want to build an open air stage like in a stadium or on a racetrack. You can drive with the trucks there days before, and you can take several days to build your stage. On a cruise ship, you have to wait until the cruise comes in the morning from with guests from a regular cruise before. You have to wait until all these people have debarked the ship. Then you have to wait for customs to actually clear the ship so we can load. And then we put 15 trailer trucks of equipment, like with a big crane and with help of hundreds of people on this ship in a small window of a few hours. But it's not only time, it's space as well. Like as I described before, in a stadium or in a racetrack, you have endless amounts of space. On the ship, you are confined to what the ship gives you. So from the outside, this looks like chaos, but there is a real master plan behind it. Every piece of truss, every piece of deck, every case has a color code, has its designated place to go to make this happen in such a confined space and in such little time. Very challenging.
Yeah, and I mean, this makes me wonder. No stupid questions, right? And if there is a big storm, some big waves, I know all ships, this kind of traveling, touring ships have shows. So this problem might occur on every ship, but I think metal, and this is specialized in metal bands, in lots of metal bands. Some normal ships have like two bands. I don't know. This has like 60. So the problem is, I think, must be bigger because the equipment, the equipment we use for metal bands are more specific. Like it's not the same thing. I think it might be a big problem. How do you work with that?
Well, look, one of the things I have to say, not for no reason, we do this cruise in January, February, which is probably the best time to be in the Caribbean at all. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's not during the hurricane season, and also We have no icebergs in the Caribbean, you know. So, but like many other, I mean, of course, there is other music cruises and stuff like this around. Our ship is massive. The name originally comes from the displacement, 70,000 tons.
Yes.
The ship that we started with, it didn't have 70,000, it had 70,000, 73,592 or whatever. But that sounds like shit, you know, so I made it 70,000 tons of metal.
Yes, round up
In the
around.
in the meantime, we are on a ship that has 154,000 tons of displacement. So it's more than double the size. It's actually bigger than an aircraft carrier. So and these cruise ships, they have stabilizers too. So as soon as we sail, it's kind of these wings that extend into the water. If you're inside the ship, you hardly actually feel any kind of movement. So it's a floating city. Imagine 3,000 fans. Then there is over 1,000 what we call non-revenue guests, all the artists, the crew, the security,
Yes, yes.
etc. And the ship itself has 1,400 crew. So in total, there is 5,500 people on this little floating city out on the ocean.
Yeah, there are cities here in Brazil that have less people than that. But it's great because I myself get seasick quite easily. So if you don't feel too much motion, I think it really helps, right?
I trust you one thing. You would come, first of all, you get an overdose of heavy metal that will certainly cure you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
no, the ship is so big and like waters are relatively calm during the time when we sail. You wouldn't get seasick.
Yeah, and I am the kind of person that moshes like every concert, every metal concert. So I think the moshing is a lot more movement than the ship. So,
Definitely, most definitely, absolutely.
and would you explain 70 tons of metal to someone who has never heard of it? What was the spark that has made you want to create a metal festival on high seas?
Well, that's kind of two questions at the same time.
Yeah.
First of all, I give you like an idea how I came up with this
Yes.
with this crazy idea. I give you a little background. There is a longer and a shorter story to it, so I try to not make it too long. At the end, I give you the short answer.
Mhm.
Um, I started organizing concerts, metal shows at a very young age in my home country in Switzerland. Um, my parents were not very happy about my hobby because I organize concerts all over the country and then I go back to school to sleep, you know. So uh, it still became my profession. Being a promoter, eventually I moved more into a booking agent role, booking concerts to the neighboring countries, to Austria, to France, to Italy, etc. Um, and that eventually led me to become a tour manager. And I was out on the road for 15 years with bands. I even at that time already came to your beautiful country of Brazil with some of the bands. Um, I worked with some Canadian bands. And for pre and post production, I went several times to Vancouver, Canada, fell in love with the city, got a vacation apartment there, just about 300 meters from the cruise ship pier in Vancouver. Because even in Canada, there is cruises in the summer. They go to from Vancouver to Alaska. Um, and that's now 18 years ago. I was sitting with some friends on my balcony and we had a couple of drinks. Obviously, I had one drink too many because, like, I proclaimed, "Hey, we should charter one of these cruise ships and put a heavy metal festival on." Well, my friends were laughing and saying, like, Andy, you're crazy. I mean, you're drunk. That's never going to work. You know, like people will fall overboard. They will destroy the ship and whatever, you know. So next
What
day,
year was that?
that was in
This.
2007, 2007. So the next day I woke up and I had this huge headache, but this idea was still in my mind. And I was like, Andy, this is so crazy. This maybe actually work. and I knew everything about the about the music industry, like the live music industry, as a promoter, as an agent, as a tour manager. I did not know a lot about cruises, you know. So I
Yeah.
had to learn a lot there. I had to find and convince a cruise line to actually charter me a ship to put a heavy metal festival on, because we all know that maybe there is sometimes a little stigma attached to heavy metal, you know. Um, but the biggest problem, the biggest challenge was money, the financing. Chartering a cruise ship, it costs millions of dollars. So like money that you don't just have, finding investors that would be willing to invest into an idea that not only has no one has done it before, it has no track record, and most everybody thinks it's completely crazy. So that wasn't easy. But look, I
Yeah.
mean, 18 years later, this is where we are. Short answer to your question. How did I come up with the idea? I was drunk.
That's metal. I mean, it's crazy. It worked. Like I've in other times of my life went around to try to find investors for some ideas, and this idea sounds harder than anything. I don't know how you you pull it off.
It's also because, like, of course, I mean, you made the experience, obviously, yourself, convincing people of new ideas. But when something sounds so crazy that it's like this must be a joke, you know, it's something different. Coming back to your original other question, to explain it to people, I can try. In the end, people have to experience it yourself. How is it to be with 3,000 people from around the world? Imagine this year we set a new record. We had people from 81 different nations on board. We also call 70,000 tons of metal the United Nations of Heavy Metal at Sea. So being with 3,000 other crazy metalheads from around the globe, and together with 60 metal bands on board, one ship, and everybody's the same. There is no backstage area. There is no VIP area. We already celebrate this on the terminal because everybody goes through the same entrance, the same security. And once people board this ship, the fans and the bands alike, and it doesn't matter if you're the musician in the biggest band or the customer in the cheapest interior cabin on deck two. Everybody gets treated the same way. So once these people go over the gangway, something happens in their subconscious, and they truly realize, in the real sense of the proverb, of the meaning, we're all in the same boat. And then you have these beautiful stories afterwards that people tell you, hey, I was waiting at the elevator to go up to the restaurant. The elevator door opened and there is Nurgle from Behemoth. Or yesterday I was sitting in the jacuzzi watching a band, and there was Joachim from Sabaton sitting next to me in the jacuzzi. Like, already the concept of sitting in a jacuzzi and watch Sepultura play, like only on 70,000 tons of metal, nowhere else in the world.
Yes, exactly. That's what Bill Hudson from Doro, you know, the Brazilian guitarist from Doro, told me. I'm pretty sure he was talking about 70 tons of metal. I don't know if there is any other place that he could have lived this. I think Doro played in 70,000 tons of metal. And he was telling me about this, that he found like every musician and people from the normal goers and the staff and everything all together, going around talking, eating, and there was no separation. uh, of course this only happens in this kind of yeah, on the same boat. It's the best way to describe it, because
It's everybody's in the same boat. There is no segregation, and because we have so many bands, this was kind of like my idea from the beginning on. Let's create a ratio between musician and fans of 1 to 10. that's also why 60 bands. The average band has like 5 musicians, right? Okay, there are some
Yes.
that have 3 or 4, but then there is some of these crazy folk metal bands that have like 12. So let's just
Yeah.
say 5. 60 times 5 is 300 musicians, 3,000 fans. And like this, you have these extremely fan, but also artist-friendly atmosphere of like everybody feels like they're backstage. And one big difference is too, you go to a festival and you want to meet your favorite musician. You have to wait at the backstage entrance for hours. And with a little luck, you get 5 seconds, maybe to get an autograph or to take a selfie, right?
Yes, exactly.
On 70,000 tons of metal, everybody is on the same ship for 5 days and 4 nights, and nobody leaves, So this is, yeah, why it's such a friendly environment. And then the artists, they go to eat at the same restaurants, they go to the same bars. At our destinations, they do the same things. And yeah, then you can go snorkeling with Creator or something like this. So
Yeah.
only on 70,000 tons of metal.
Of course, and the musicians aren't rushing into some tour. They are all on the same boat. They have scheduled shows, and the other is free time. So they can speak with people without rushing, without thank you, I have to be somewhere else. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's great.
Exactly.
Speaking about this, Brazil has some international fame for being energetic, for being passionate. How are Brazilian fans and even Brazilian bands on the 70,000 tons of metal?
Amongst all these nations from around the world, Brazil certainly has a very, very special place in our hearts and in 70,000 tons of metal. As you said, Brazilian fans are extremely passionate. There is like a heart blood and a liveliness to Brazilian fans that is second to none. So one of the reasons why I'm here to hope that we have next year even more Brazilian fans on board. And um, over the years, I mean, we had many of the big Brazilian bands on board. We had Sepultura, we had Angra, we had Nervosa, and a couple of other ones too. There is one promise that I can make today. Not just because there is such a great followership and Brazilian fans are so enthusiastic, like no other ones around the world, but also because there is such an amount of great talent amongst metal bands in Brazil that next year, but also in the future, I'll make sure there is always Brazilian participation, not just among the fans, but also in the lineup of 70,000 tons of metal.
Great. Imagine if someday I can play with my band. It would be great.
There dreams are always for
Yes.
free, like you
Yeah,
try. And look, sometimes we have dreams and they don't happen overnight, they don't happen the next year. It was my dream to create a heavy metal cruise on a heavy metal festival on a cruise ship. It took me more than 3.5 years to make the dream come true. So try again.
exactly. To just be on the 70,000 tons of metal is already a dream. Playing is another one.
Look, it would be great to have you, Ian, and o cara do metal on board 70,000 tons of metal. It's maybe a match made in heavy metal heaven, so.
Yes, exactly. I think I would have infinite contents to record there.
There is one more thing, Ian. You probably will have to have a vacation after your heavy metal vacation because, it's each of the 60 bands play twice.
Oh,
This is something that also makes 70,000 tons of metal different from other metal festivals. Most of the bands, they actually played 2 different sets for the 2 shows. Some they play an entire album for the first show. They play an entire album for the second show.
mhm.
And it also creates a fair chance for everybody on board to actually see if they really want all of the 60 bands. Um, However, it can be really stressful. And bars on board, there are some bars on board that never close 24 hours, you know. So if you think it's a vacation, you better plan some vacation after your vacation.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. But I love this full album show concert. Every time a band I like does this, I go and search for it and see if they are coming here, because you know we all like. I think this is an art form that is sort of dying in the music industry, not in the metal industry, but in the pop, in music industry. You know, the full album, because the whole album is like an art form of itself, not just one song. And I love this, that some bands play a full album one time and then another full album another time. This is great. I didn't know this.
It's
Okay.
something very special, and especially like among metal bands, many albums they have like a concept behind, like it's a concept album. So
Exactly.
playing individual songs from a record is never the same thing than when you get like the whole story. And that's what we try to bring to 70,000 tons of metal. Sometimes, as it always is, you need to convince an artist to do something special. But 70,000 tons of metal is something special. And we do stuff that no other festivals do. Like this year, we had something really, really, really unique. Swallow the Sun from Finland. We had them before, and
Oh,
I mean, like I know them very well. I know their manager, and they have done this only once before in their home country, actually in Helsinki. They had a special show of heavy metal fused with ballet. So, I mean, this is almost as crazy as putting heavy metal on a cruise ship, right? Um,
yes.
the manager and I, we talked about this, and I said, "This is so crazy, you know. I want to have this on 70,000 tons of metal." And he's like, um, I mean, do you know what that costs? You know, like bringing the ballet and the whole choreographer and everybody over.
Yes, yes.
Look, it's not just about money. I want this on 70,000 tons of metal. So, and then we had Swallow the Sun featuring Ballet Finland sailing on 70,000 tons of metal in the middle of the Caribbean, how on the way to Jamaica. How much more crazy can it get? Only
Yeah.
on 70,000 tons of metal.
Well, can you share an unbelievable story that happened on board? It could be funny, unexpected, or just plain wild. We're sure we've got some good ones. You know, this one was already a good one, but do you have like some other one? Because we are short on time. I think this may be a good ending.
One of the most heartwarming stories, and probably playing part of our global community, is this. And it happened actually more than once. There is people that came to the cruise from different continents. They met on 70,000 tons of metal. They got married. Now they have children. And they come together as a family with their children on 70,000 tons of metal. This is
Oh,
this is really, I mean, this is the essence of 70,000 tons of metal, bringing people from around the world, no matter what background, what skin color, what's your orientation, from countries that are at war with each other, for the same reason, for the love of heavy metal on one ship, playing in the middle of the ocean. That's 70,000 tons of metal. We also call it the United Nations of Heavy Metal at Sea.
oh, that's really really cute. I think it's heartwarming, not just the this story, but the very existence. The first time I heard about this, me, you know, o cara do metal means the metal guy. So,
Yeah.
so everything I talk about in one way or another relies around metal. So I was really happy to know, like, even if I could never go, I was just happy to know this exists. Like, oh my god, this community is so fucking awesome. We have a cruise just for metal, you know.
Yeah,
And I, I think this shows like the how passionate we are. May not be the most the most mainstream music genre out there, but I think some stuff metalheads do, none other genres have the guts, not the guts, yeah, the gut, the, you know, the heart to do it. And
the heart and this sense of community.
exactly,
I think there is probably no other contemporary music genre that is so globalized than heavy metal. I mean, I go from Brazil to Indonesia, and from Japan to Canada, and from South Africa to Ireland, and I see people wearing metal shirts, you know, like you don't see this with any other contemporary music genre. And that's special. And like, I'm actually happy to have my little place in this global heavy metal family. This is it's something really, really special, and it's a family. Even when people come alone, hopefully you, Okara do Metal, will be on board 70,000 tons of metal. Even you know people, but if somebody watches this and you have no friend that can come with you, and you go alone to 70,000 tons of metal, I guarantee you one thing: you will come home with lifelong friends from all over the world, you know.
I think if there's something to take away from this interview, I found very beautiful that like the focus of the majority of things you said are really on the unity in diversity that we have on this 70,000 tons of metal. I mean, I already heard before that it was like that, but now it just confirmed it, and now I'm really, really excited to someday get on board and get on the same boat than everyone on the 70,000 tons of metal. Thanks for being with me. I'm really, really glad to meet you.
Thank you very much. And I hope to have you, Okara do Metal, and all the people that watch Okara do Metal next year on the 29th of January in Miami, the cruise capital of the world, as we set sail on board 70,000 tons of metal. Once again, hope to see you there.
I really hope I can go.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Been
you.
a real pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank
It's
you.
been a really pleasure too.